Naval Creed. Today we'll be going over the newest Prism ship, and that is the British cruiser Black Prince. I've renamed her Warrior because that's kind of what she seems like to me, and this is actually a pretty good ship. She's not as strong as I thought she would be, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either. So let's take a look to see what we have. So first off, she's a 9.0 matchmaking cruiser, so she's going to be paired against Drake and Neptune in the tech tree. So just keep that in mind. We have 46,500 health, 15% torpedo damage resistance, up to 8 inches maximum of armor, but we only have 6 on the belt. It looks like the turret faces are the ones with the most armor, that being the 8 inches or 203 millimeters. Armor-wise, she's not invincible. She can be citadeled, just like any other, British cruiser, honestly. It's not all the time, however. She is a little bit more robust when it comes to her armor. But like I said, if you aim underneath like the turrets or even just the direct broadside, you will still be able to citadel her. You can even see like where her belt armor is. So it starts here, comes up, and you have the larger plate over all the machinery spaces, and it ends here underneath the turret. You actually have a little bit here as well to protect from, well, shots going straight through the ship and into the citadel that way. I'm not sure how effective that is, or if that's just part of the way the ship looks. Actually, let's see if it does have a different armor. It does actually have a little bit more armor right there on the stern. So that's nice that they have that implemented. It's a little bit thicker armor. Probably won't save you, maybe from a couple destroyer shells if it's using armor piercing right at that flat end, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal. So that's the main ship itself. Guns. We have a 234 millimeter guns. These are about 9.4 inch, I'm pretty sure, or something about that. Something around 9 inch. So we have 3 triples. So we have 2 in the front, 1 in the rear. These guns are pretty good, actually. 4.5 rounds a minute, 30-second, 180-degree turn time. The damages are not bad, but the main thing is the shell velocity, 933 meters per second. I'm pretty sure that's the fastest shell of any cruiser at this matchmaking tier. That's including 8.5 and 9.0 matchmaking tiers only. So very fast shells, and you would think that with 9-inch guns, her armor piercing would be very good. It can be, but most of the time I would say stick with high explosive unless you have a very good broadside, because honestly, the armor piercing's not working the way I want it to most of the time. But high explosive will always do damage, and you'll even set fires to boot. Main gun range is 17.2 kilometers, and your secondary range is 5.0. You have a couple of secondaries here. These are the Daring secondaries. These are 114 millimeter guns. They fire high explosive. They're not actually that bad when it comes to taking on destroyers. You can do some decent damage, but if you're at 5 kilometers to a destroyer, most of the time you're just going to use your main guns to delete it. But your secondaries might do a little bit of damage. Who knows? And then torpedoes. We have 4 quintuple launchers. So we have 2 on each side. You can kind of see it here. So that's 10 torpedoes to a side, which is extremely powerful. And these torpedoes themselves are extremely good as well. 10-kilometer range, 15,800 damage each. 60 knot speed, so they're actually pretty fast too. 0.67 rounds a minute, which means they reload in about 89.5 seconds. 1.3 detectability, which is pretty good as well. And the flood chance is pretty high too. But honestly, the flood chance doesn't matter, because if you're putting 10 torpedoes into a target, that's at least, well, a maximum of 158,000 damage. That's not counting any torpedo damage resistance percentile. But yeah, so that's a lot of damage. And there's been multiple times where I've just rushed like 3 battleships and just sank them all with torpedoes and kept going on my merry way. So you can be quite aggressive with your torpedoes. It's definitely not a problem. And even with 10-kilometer range, you don't have to get that close to the enemy. How about speed? 33 knots. So she's not necessarily a speed demon, but she's not slow either. She's really, really average. I mean, that's not a bad thing. That's not a negative by chance. It's just saying she can keep up with everyone else. AA defense. You can see the stats here. I do have a little bit of buffs to my AA, so those aren't the base ranges, but the damages are pretty base. Pretty good AA. She's not going to be able to take down carrier strikes before they reach her, but she will be able to take down a few planes before they strike, and she'll be able to shoot down more as they leave. So you might get half to 2/3 of a squadron before it runs away. Obviously, that's just single squadrons attacking you. If you have an actual player that's using their fighters as anti-aircraft bait, like I like to do, then they'll probably be able to get a full strike through. But who knows? It's not terrible. I haven't had any problems with the AA either. I guess we can go over concealment. 11.1 concealment. I can still increase that, or decrease that, I should say. And then we have stats. So we have a heal, or a repair, I should say. We have a normal heal, which gives us 3 charges, or we have a super heal, just like Neptune and Minotaur, and this gives us 2 charges. But again, it's a super heal, so it charges or re-heals more of your ship. We also have a smoke screen that we can use. There's actually some games where I don't even use the smoke screen. Like, I just take out the enemies so quickly that I don't need that for cover because I'm still trying to get back to where the enemies are because now they're so far away. Honestly, the ship is really, really good. I did dump a lot of free XP into crew skills, so she is quite buffed versus the ship right when you purchase her. But she is a really, really good ship. So let's toss her into a game and see what we can do. Alright, here we saw the game. We have a carrier, 2 battleships, quite a few cruisers, and a couple of destroyers. So we have a little bit of everything. So that's pretty good. The ship is really, really good at taking on enemy cruisers. So this is actually probably a very, very good game to set her up for. She's a pretty large cruiser, though. I do have to say, she's one of the larger cruisers, so she's not going to be a hard target to hit. So you always have to keep in mind where your ship is angled to in terms of enemies. So if you have a battleship on your broadside, then maybe you want to try and angle towards it or away. Or pop a smoke screen and disappear. So, yeah, you're not a hard target. You're like a super Neptune, I guess you could say, with bigger guns. Okay, so we're going to start up going this way. Like I said, I do have health buffs and speed buffs applied, as well as crew skills, so this is not the base ship. And we're going to start heading off towards the side. So let's see. Audacious, not too concerned. Freddy, not really that concerned. Yama can hurt, definitely. We have a Mino, 3 leans, actually. We have a Warrior, Fletcher, and an Aki. Okay. Maneuverability is pretty good as well. I do like all my ships to have a rudder mod added, so I like my maneuverability. So that's why mine kind of turn on a dime here. So our torpedoes are reloaded. You can see the angles. They're actually really, really good. And then gun angles, let's see what we have. Something like that. On the broadside and astern, you'll probably be able to bounce a lot of shells. Even, I would say, on the bow as well, or at least a little bit. Not all the time, but at least definitely on broadside and astern. And that's just using all 3 turrets. You can also just nose in like this and try and bounce them that way. Alright, so we already have one of the cruisers in sight here. We don't have any aircraft. That is one of the things that she does not have. Not many British cruisers do have them though, so it kind of fits. But it does mean that if you pop your smoke screen, you don't have any way of spotting ships yourself. So you can see how fast these shells are. They're extremely fast. I'm already hitting the target. And it's not a destroyer smokescreen, it is a British cruiser smokescreen, which means that you pop it and it stays in one place. I'm going to try and work on this Aki because she is actually very dangerous with those torpedoes. And it'll give me a good chance to shoot down some of these aircraft without being spotted anyways. Did I give too much lead? I think I gave too much lead. There we go. That's better. I do have a little bit of accuracy buffs added as well, or the cruise skill. So my shots are pretty accurate as well. Okay, so my secondaries are actually opening up. And so much for not being spotted. My secondaries are opening up on this Fletcher here, so you can kind of see how effective they are. So going back to that dive bomber strike, I don't know what it is about these, or dive bombers in general, but torpedo bombers, as you can see here, they're just sitting there, they can't see me. But dive bombers can apparently still see me even in the smoke. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen enough that it kind of gets bothersome. So secondaries are going up against this warrior, high shell arcs, so it's plunging fire. They're really rapid fire though, so I guess they are a little bit better against destroyers than I would have thought, simply because of how fast they reload. What's this Yama doing? I'm gonna launch some torps her way. I'm expecting her to maneuver, so I'm not putting too much faith in them. But we can also rush her as well. Ooh, double fire, that's nice. There's the Audacious in the background. Not really going to worry about her right now. We have shot down 11 planes so far though. So assuming Yama doesn't move, we should be able to get... No, not even a single torpedo hit. She already did move. So we're just going to have to rush her with what we have on this side. Also, our torpedoes reload pretty quickly. We did go over the reload, but as you can see, 30 seconds until they're already back. It's pretty nice. And we're trying to bounce Yama shells the best we can. Now, Yama does have a 50% torpedo damage resistance, so my torpedoes are only going to do half of what they normally do, but that will still be enough to sink them. Cool. Armor piercing, because there's a Minotaur right there. Secondaries actually did a little bit of damage, that's nice. And 5 citadels for over 30,000 damage. And this Mino is pretty much gone. That means we have our next target. Ooh, there's a Freddy. But we're actually going to stop right here, smoke up, and work on this Audacious. We still have armor piercing loaded, so we should be able to pen her without a problem. We're going to use a heal as well. Now these guns, the 234s, are actually pretty similar to the top tier British heavy cruiser, Duke of Edinburgh, or as I've renamed her, London. I haven't been able to play her yet, obviously since she's not released, but they are the same caliber, so they should be pretty similar. We're going to finish off this Audacious real quick, and then we're going to switch to this Freddy to show you how the armor piercing does on broadsiding targets. Though the Audacious is doing a perfect job of doing that already. But Freddy is pretty strong with her armor, since she's a German battleship. Alright, so we're going to aim for the upper belt. We are going to get quite a bit of damage. But I mean, I feel like I would get a little bit more sometimes with 8-inch guns, like if I were using Prince Eugen. But these guns are definitely not bad. They just don't seem to do as much as I would expect. But it's constant damage, nonetheless. See if that gets us anything. Ooh, I'm actually... Well, oh well. And then we still have a destroyer somewhere. Oh, it's the Aki back there. She's still up. We have Lean, and we have Freddy de Gross. I'm going to switch to armor piercing. Let's send out some torpedoes here. Let's see what we can do against this Lean. That was a good chunk of damage, at least on a cruiser. She's gone. And now we have Freddy and the Aki, which is being chased all the way up to the north. So yeah, you just kind of keep your range against targets that can do a lot of damage to you. and you just slowly whittle them down. If it's cruisers, you can rush them. Though honestly, rushing ships was probably better for battleships, that is. Because those torpedoes definitely would have hit had the Freddy still been alive. Let's switch to high explosive for the destroyer. And finish her off. So against destroyers, she's really good. Her secondaries actually do a decent amount of damage, and the rate of fire is very nice. The range is a little bit meh, but I mean, if you're that close to a destroyer, you're going to want everything you can. And against cruisers, she has really strong armor piercing and high explosive. Against battleships, she has pretty good high explosive. We were able to light 3 fires on that Yamato before she went down. You can also just rush them and put torpedoes into them. Already my torpedoes are reloaded. Carriers, we were able to shoot down 17 planes. We weren't really focused by the carrier all that much, and we did have help from teammates, so we weren't by ourselves. But 17 planes is nothing to laugh about. It was a pretty decent amount. I think Audacious has 90 or 96 at this point. They did make a change to that recently. So yeah, I mean, she's a really, really good ship, and she even comes with a smokescreen. So we have a 9-inch gun cruiser with a smokescreen now. The largest we've had before this, well, for the light cruisers was 6-inch, and then we've had 8-inch and 7.5 with the heavy cruisers. So that short game, we did 302,000 damage, 4 ships were sunk, 191 shell hits, 4 torpedo hits, 17 aircraft shot down, 11 flooding, 1 module destroyed, 1 occupied base, and 48 secondary hits for 14,000 base XP and 24,000 free XP. Remember, she is a prism ship, so she gets that multiplier to the free XP. We did 68,000 damage in high explosive. Armor piercing did 153,000 damage. It was mainly because I was getting a lot of citadels. There's a lot of cruisers. So in that case, armor piercing is going to be very, very good. And even on broadsiding battleships. But if they even have just a little bit of an angle, a lot of it will still ricochet. But that goes for any armor piercing shell, honestly. And then you can just use high explosive in the superstructure. So fires did 44,500 damage, so that was pretty decent as well. Secondary battery did also 6,600, and then torpedoes did almost 29,000 damage. So this ship is pretty much a jack of all trades. You need something to knock down aircraft, you have pretty okay AA, and you can even use your smoke screen to hide so they can't really attack you all that well. You have good guns for, well, getting the shell to the target as soon as possible with your fast shell speed. So against destroyers, you're really, really good, even at long range. Cruisers, you can snipe them with citadels, and battleships, you can just take major chunks out of them, one salvo at a time. And even against carriers, if you get a carrier broadside, it's pretty much done for. Torpedoes, you're borderline have a destroyer. Actually, you do have a destroyer on each side. You have 3 torpedo or gun mounts here, and you have 2 torpedo mounts of quintuple. So that's an entire daring class on each side of your ship, plus your 9-inch guns. So you can see how the ship is very, very powerful. In actually terms of size, this is Neptune, and this is Warrior. So you only have a little bit of a longer bow, and that's about it. And you change up the guns, which the 6-inch guns look really, really small now. So yeah, you have a really, really good ship right here. As mentioned, she is quite similar to the upcoming top tier British cruiser. As you can see, it's a little bit bigger, but she keeps those 9-inch guns. They turn into quad turrets, and you keep the secondaries. You lose some of your torpedoes, but you do have some good firepower. We'll go over this when she eventually comes out, but for right now, this ship is really, really good, and it's actually one I would recommend. It's not that hard to play, and you can have some really fun games with her. So with that, I will wrap up today's video. If you liked the video, make sure you like and subscribe for further content, and join me tomorrow while we go over, I'm pretty sure we're going to go over Robin. There's a few other ships I can do, but I might as well just get the carrier out of the way to show you off her new consumable. So again, thank you and take care.